Hello, it's Carol from Crinkled Path, and I'm here with another junk journal with me in my altered book for my memory keeping. And I have been thinking, because we are well into summer now, about some of my summer memories, and one of them was going to summer camp. When I was about 9 years old, I started going to 1 week of summer camp away, and the very first year the camp was brand new, and I picked a very muted palette for my ephemera today because the one thing I remember most about that first year at camp, actually the first probably 3 years at camp, was just being dirty the whole time. And that's silly, but it's the truth. The camp, the first year I went, it opened with just the bare bones, and it was up in the Placer County area of California with this red dirt, pine trees, oak trees, and they had very limited bathroom facilities. They had porta potties, they had one shower house, and campers were allowed a 2-minute shower, I think twice during the week they were there, possibly only once. I can't remember exactly, but I do remember it seemed like way less than what should be normal. Anyway, I stayed in a cabin. I have a few things to remind me of the time there, and so I wanted to collage them onto the page. I did grab this red doily piece because it reminds me so much of the uniforms that the staff had to wear on the special occasion, like weekend services they did. During the week, it was all about crafts and getting to sign up for different events and things to do. And anyway, this just reminds me of the shirts that the girls wore. So it was a church camp, and they had lots of activities for us. I remember it rained, it was very muddy, it was lots of fun, but somewhat traumatizing for I think it was really my first time away from home. I did go with a friend. We stayed in the cabins. We went to basic camp, which just meant, you know, they had specialty camps. And in subsequent years, I went to the specialty camps. But when you were 9 years old, it was kind of like cubby camp. You had to go to basic. And so I went, and I loved the music, and I loved the activities, and I really liked the crafts and the camaraderie of being in the cabin. I remember being a little homesick, and my parents writing me a letter while I was there. And I remember that the most exciting thing that happened the whole week actually came out of a bit of tragedy. So one of the events, I'm going to use some more of this music just to tie it to the other page. One of the events that I did, or activities, I should say, that I did, was getting to go down to the rodeo arena for a basic riding lesson. Now, mind you, I had been riding my uncle's horse on the farm for many years, and so I had a little experience with that. But because I didn't get to ride very often, only when we went back for summers on the farm, I did the horsemanship class. And sitting on the railing of the rodeo arena, waiting for the class to start, another kid like whacked me on the back really hard, like, hey there, and, you know, like whacked me on the back. And apparently I was not well balanced sitting up on the top of the fence, and I fell, and didn't, because my hands were behind me, I didn't get my hands out in front of me, and it was a bit humiliating, but basically I fell into the dirt in the arena, you know, mortified, feeling like there had to have been horse pucky in there. Road apples. And I apparently either broke or bruised my nose really badly, and they were concerned. Staff was concerned enough that they were like, we should at least get it checked by the camp nurse. But because it was so muddy and no paved roads up there that first year, there was just dirt and mud, and so the way they had us on buses, somehow they managed in the mud with the buses, but the way that the staff got around was in a dune buggy. And so I found this picture of a dune buggy that was the same kind as what the staff were using. And they took me in the dune buggy to go find the nurse. And I think that was probably the most exciting thing that happened to me all week, despite the fact that my face was hurting. The ride was very exciting. I find it funny now that that's what I recall, is not so much all the other activities that I did, but rather my ride in the dune buggy. So the dirt up there in those hills is red clay, and it doesn't wash out. Pretty much after that first summer that I went, my mom saved old clothes for me to take up there. And that's what I would take every year because it just basically wouldn't wash out. So I'm going to put my horse on here somehow. Happy camper. So that first year I went to basic camp. The next year I went to the Native American Studies camp, where you slept in a teepee and you learned how to weave baskets and make moccasins. I have some of this parchment paper that I think I'm going to work into, but while I'm talking, I'm going to probably keep moving these around. I'm not too crazy about how they're coming together yet. And I just remember, I would say miserable bliss would be how I would describe it, because I remember having a lot of fun, but also just being very uncomfortable with the dirt. When I went to Native American Studies camp, then I was sleeping on an anthill in a teepee, and the ants were like the size of my small dog at home. That's what I felt. And, you know, the bathrooms were way down the road. And so getting up in the middle of the night and having to traipse down to where the porta potties were, and in the dark, and being 9 or 10 years old and never having really been away from home, it was exciting and scary all at the same time. And then I think I am going to, because I always seem to have difficulty finding a place to put my journaling if I don't purposely make a piece, I'm thinking I'm going to make a place to slide something behind this photo. And this is the historic Leone house. It has been completely restored by the local historic society. I love the feel of this parchment. The third year that I went to camp, which it was into the 80s by that third year, I went to cowboy camp. And then by the end of the 80s, I actually worked at the summer camp for a summer, being a counselor at cowboy camp. And my husband worked there for 9 years. From the time he was in junior high, his parents sent him off to work there every summer. And he was a fixture. I was looking for the picture of the Leone house and just Googling the camp. And if there's pictures of people, I found at least 5 pictures out of the 12 or so I searched for where my husband's in the picture, which is a fun part of his history. Okay, I think I'm going to try the top-down gluing method. This is a sticker. Because of the muted palette, I'm just going to age this a little bit. Oops, that's a bit too much. Take a little bit off. That's the nice thing about the Distress inks, is that they wipe off if you get a little too much on a slick surface. I like the grungy, dirty look for this one for sure, because that's what I remember. Just being dirty. But, you know, a little dirt never hurt. It was probably good for the soul. Of course, they had, you know, fireside skits, and they were so funny, and the counselors were so nice. I obviously didn't mind the misery parts very much if I was willing to go back consequent years. I've still not gotten a stainless steel needle, and I am really messing up my glue. I have to do something about that. I tried to order one through Amazon and couldn't get one. I need to go down to the local fabric store and get one, because the rust is clogging up my tips. It's just one of those things that has not been at the forefront of things of my to-do list, but every time I sit down to journal, I'm sad and disappointed that it's clogging up, and I'm trying not to waste my glue. I don't know how I got so lucky with the first pin that I put in there working so great. And then the rest of them I have tried, after I lost that one, all the rest have been not stainless steel. Okay, get back where you were. Okay, I'm going to put a little thumb notch here. Put a journaling card in. My punch is getting dull. Let's see if I can fix that. Time for some foil. Sharpen it up again, punch in some foil. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and glue this down. Did you have experience with camp? Did you go away to camp ever as a child? Or did you go away for some other traditional summer outing, maybe with your family? Or did you just camp with your family? We did some tent camping. Once my siblings got a little older, and then my parents still camped with me, I made friends at camp that stayed friends with for a long time. I met up with new people there who then I ended up exchanging, writing letters to them, and then we would plan for the next year to try and go the same week and get in the same cabin, which is kind of fun. And after the first year at basic camp, and then the next year at Native American Studies camp, and then the next year at horsemanship camp or cowboy camp, then every year after that, I just kept going back to the cowboy camp where you slept in covered wagons, and that started becoming my favorite. And so I stuck with that. And I think I went, from the time I was 9 until I think 8th grade was the last year that I went. About the time I finished going to camp was about the time that my husband started actually working there. And so I think there were definitely times when our paths crossed, but we didn't know each other. So I think that's kind of funny. I'm going to go ahead and do my journaling and tuck it in this pocket. And I'll see you in the next video, but please share your stories in the comments if you have a summer memory, and I appreciate hearing your stories because your stories matter. Bye-bye.